Greetings adventurers, and welcome back to my review for the top 10 domain cards for Daggerheart. We're going to be doing level 2 this time, so with no further ado, please arm yourselves with pens and shield yourselves with graph paper as we gather around the campfire of our collective imaginations. Number 10 is Cindergrasp. Make a spellcast roll against a target in melee range. On a success, the target instantly bursts into flames, dealing 1d20 magic damage and temporarily catching them on fire. Anytime a creature tries to act while on fire, it must take an additional 2d6 magic damage if it is still on fire at the end of its action. So basically this one made the top 10 despite being a single target spell. Requires no resources, no hope or stress to cast this, and then it does a huge amount of base damage, 1d20, the first time we're seeing a d20 in damage, probably in any game you've played. And then the rider of additional 2d6 damage, it's a huge damaging spell. One of the first damage over time spells we see, and so for that reason, makes the top 10. Number 9 is Body Basher. You use the full force of your body in the fight. On a successful melee attack, always add your strength trait to your damage total. I like this because it doesn't cost you any additional attributes or anything. It doesn't cost you any additional actions, doesn't cost any resources, and it's just a passive boost to your damage. Here, you're maybe going to get a +3 to strength. There are other ways to get bonuses to strength, and that could conceivably get up to like a +7. Basically, going to be beating everybody's minor threshold every time with a bonus like that. It's not incredible at this level, but it does even out the curve of your damage. I think we know from other games that adding a modifier to your flat damage is really powerful. It does have that limitation that it's melee only, which I think implies it's not supposed to work with very close weapons, which is kind of weird. I would absolutely homebrew that. If someone decided to use a halberd, you're going to add this. Number 8, Midnight Spirit. Spend a hope to summon an arcane spirit the same size as yourself that can move or carry things you can see until your next short rest. You may also send it to make an attack on an enemy. When you do, make a spellcast roll against a target within very far range of you. On a success, roll an amount of d6 equal to your spellcast trait, and deal that much magic damage to the target. The spirit then dissipates. You can only have one spirit at a time. This is mostly a utility spell. The fact that it does do damage based off of something besides your proficiency is pretty impressive for the level, but one hope for 2d6 or 3d6 damage, not game breaking. Very far range is excellent, but the fact that you can move or carry things you can see until your short rest, this is essentially going to be mage hand for the rogue and the sorcerer. Really, it's the unseen servant. Just a lot of versatility in here, even social aspects, because you could have them serve you hand and foot. Several things, like they can probably pour you a drink, but they're not going to be fixing anybody's armor anytime soon. Versatile, fun spell with a combat edge in there. Number 7, Healing Hands. Make a spellcast roll and target a creature other than yourself in melee. On a success, mark a stress to heal the target 2 hit points or 2 stress. On a failure, mark a stress to heal the target 1 hit point or 1 stress. I kind of see this as the improved version of inspirational words. It's off of a different domain, which it's more efficient. It does require a easy to accomplish spellcast roll, but still being able to heal more hit points or more stress means that if you and a friend both have healing hands, you could kind of have a union with each other, and just after every combat, everyone in your party has no stress and no hit point loss. I think that combo ability makes it really good, but it does require 2 people to have access to the domains and also to have those domain cards. So because this is level 2, you're only going to get the 1. It does take a little while to get off the ground, but the potential is there. They might have to edit this one to prevent something like that to once per short rest, maybe increase the stress cost or something. It's really good. I can definitely see this one becoming broken, and partially because it can become broken, that's one reason I feel like it doesn't rank higher. You don't want broken abilities necessarily. You want good abilities, fun abilities. Still, this is the current tier for healing. Number 6, Book of Vagras. Runic Lock. You can infuse a rune upon an object that can close a lock, chest, box, bag, or etc. It will lock the object from being opened by anyone besides those you choose. The spell can be broken by somebody with magic in an hour of time to study it. Arcane Door. When you have no enemies in melee range, make a spellcast roll. On a success, spend hope to disappear from where you are and reappear somewhere within far range you can see. Reveal. Make a spellcast roll. If there's anything hidden within close range, the roll would succeed against. It is no longer hidden. You get a lot right here from this one. Honestly, not incredible combat capabilities. Even exploration, it's limited, but it is the first teleportation. Arcane Door, it is not a combat teleport because you can't use it to get out of melee. You could, in theory, use it to get out of prisons or someplace because you have to be able to see. That's not a terrible limitation. It's within far range, which is going to get you 100 feet or so. Teleportation is always incredible. If you can get a low-level teleport, you will be happy to have it for every opportunity. You can't bring anybody with you, which is one of the limitations. For a runic lock, because it doesn't give you a limit or a cost for the runic lock, that's where it's powerful. It takes one action. So that's some exploration and social, and that's a little bit of combat right here, because you can divide your enemies up, kind of get them sequestered into one room, lock it really hard, and they're going to take an hour in order to break into it, assuming there's a spellcaster among them. You can use some real creativity with runic lock, even use it on your pockets, and therefore nobody can pickpocket you. For Reveal, this kind of increases your single attribute dependency, and essentially if you're a knowledge-based character, now you're using knowledge to look for hidden things. It won't find everything, it's just hidden things, and it's no longer hidden, and that's pretty good. Number 5, Thought Delver. You can peek into the minds of others. Spend a hope to read the vague surface thoughts of a target within far range. Make a spellcast roll against the target to delve for deeper, more hidden thoughts. It's mind reading. Mind reading is incredibly useful. Even in combat, you could easily say your character is preparing themselves, and that should give you some kind of advantage if you're reading the mind of who the person you're fighting, because it's surface thoughts. You're going to see what they're going to try to do before they do it. Incredible tactical advantage right there. There's not exactly a range after you have it cast. It's not clear about what happens to spells after you go out of range. In the example of Dungeons and Dragons, if you cast haste on somebody and then they run a mile away, if you maintain concentration, haste will still be up, even though it's only got a range of like 100 feet or something. For this, it might be similar, or it might break once they get out of far range. The fact that you can dive deeper into their minds for hidden thoughts is what brings it so high. If it was just detect surface thoughts, it might not make the list. It might just be an honorable mention, but I'm very happy to call Thought Delver one of the best level 2 domain cards, because you can find out what people want, social use, you can find out where secrets are, exploration use, and you can prepare yourself in combat. Number 4, Natural Familiar. Spend a hope to summon a small nature spirit or forest critter to your side until your next short rest. Use the spell again or until it takes damage. If you spend an additional hope, they can be a familiar that flies. You can communicate with it, you may make a spellcast roll to command it to perform simple tasks, and you can mark a stress to see through its eyes. While this creature is summoned, when you deal damage to an enemy, the critter is in melee range with you, you deal an additional 1d6 physical damage. Obvious combat use right there. Risky, because once this takes damage, that can be an issue. They don't have any details for it, so I assume they're going to use your evasion, and that could be really good. But they're not going to have any armor, and so this could lead to your character being an evasion build, which I think you can see some of the combinations for a very high evasion being very hard to hit, even on a d20 plus 5. Only costs a single hope to get any familiar, 2 hope to get a flying one, and because you can mark a stress to see through its eyes, that's exploration right there. You can have them go through improbable locations, and you just have a spider on the wall very easily. Doing simple commands to perform simple tasks, that's itself also very useful. It could require some game master buy-in, but I think the versatility brings us so high. If it didn't have the rider for the extra damage, it probably wouldn't make it this high, and the damage is not incredible, but for the cost of a hope, to get more than 1d6 damage is going to be really good. Number 3, Final Words. Make a spellcast roll. On a success, you can infuse a moment of life into a corpse in order to speak with it. If the result is with hope, it will answer up to 3 questions. If the result is with fear, only 1. Once the spell ends, or on a failure, the body will turn to dust. There's no time limit on this. You could speak to the most ancient people in the world, go to their pyramids or anything, and ask some really probing questions. Incredible exploration possibilities here, which opens up the social aspects. And that last little bit there, Once the spell ends or a failure, the body will turn to dust. This is a great way to prevent the enemy from creating undead. I think that's sometimes an overlooked ability. It's not as good as actually saving somebody's life, but this is a way to essentially turn your people to dust, carry them around, and there you go. They're not going to be resurrected, but they're also not going to be returned as undead. And I think it's not that's a nice rider effect that brings us a little bit higher, but it's the fact that you can ask 3 or 1 questions to any undead. That means you could make some dead your own and ask them some really important questions. Potential murder hobo spell right here. Just gotta be careful with those 3 questions. Number 2, Book of Sitil. Adjust appearance. You can magically shift your appearance and clothing to avoid recognition. Paralela. Spend a hope to cast a spell on yourself or one ally close to you. The next time the creature makes an attack, they can split the damage between any targets in range that the attack roll succeeds against. Illusion. Make a spellcast 14 roll. On a success, create a temporary visual illusion no larger than you within close range that will last for as long as you look at it. It holds up to scrutiny until an observer is within melee range. You get a class feature as well as a lower level domain card in this. Adjust appearance is almost as good as the uncanny disguise from Midnight at level 1. So that's solid. Paralela, I see no reason you couldn't cast Paralela on everybody in your party, and it doesn't give a time limit. You probably want to put some kind of reasonable duration, next short rest, next long rest, but you can kind of, if you have extra hope, this is a good thing to spend it on because it means that you can turn your melee high damage characters into area of effect characters. It's also going to look really cool when they've got those shadow forms coming out of them to do this extra damage. Really sweet ability right there. Illusion. Come on, illusions reward creativity at all times. Not a super hard spellcast roll. It is only 1 illusion as far as I can tell, and it's going to last for as long as you look at it. And that's a fairly steep issue with it, but it doesn't cost hope, it doesn't cost stress, and it's going to hold up to scrutiny until this has got all kinds of benefits to it. You got the combat, you got the exploration, because of adjust appearance, you can go almost anywhere Uncanny Disguise can, and illusion. That can be used for many things. Best of all, I like using illusions to convey a lot of information. If somebody asks you, what does he look like? You just make an illusion. You create a portrait of the person in no time. That is going to be an incredible social ability. You're also going to have the fact that even though it's only an illusion no larger than you, maybe your character's a giant, and that's going to have other aspects to it. If you are a small character, maybe not as powerful. And now we have 3 honorable mentions. I'm going to go through this quickly. It's Floating Eye, Conjure Swarm, and Bold Presence. For Floating Eye, it's to spend a hope to create a single, small floating orb that you can control anywhere within very far range from you. While controlling it, you can choose to see through its vision as though it's your own. If the orb takes damage or moves out of range, the spell will immediately end. Like, this rules, like, it's kind of why I feel like the other spells are supposed to be able to go out of range, because this one specifically states it's limited to the range, and that range limit is the reason why I couldn't put this into the listing. Otherwise, this is almost as good as Natural Familiar. It only costs a single hope, small floating orb, very difficult to see, can't really do anything with it, but ultimate exploration capabilities. Very far range, is really far. Usually you can spitball, it's like 300 feet, most of a castle, but it can't go through anything on its own, so it can be circumvented by just having windows. Conjure Swarm was one I really wanted to put in for its first ability. Takara Armored Beetles. Mark an armor slot to encircle yourself in beetles. When you take damage, you can reduce the damage by your armor score. Anytime you reduce damage in this way, the beetles will dissipate unless you spend a hope to keep them active. Fireflies. Make a spellcast roll against any close enemies. On a success, spend hope to have the fireflies swarm them, doing 2d8 magic damage to all targets you succeeded against. So first of all, that top one means essentially you can spend hope in order to get armor. That's a very powerful ability. That's a class feature essentially, and it makes a ranger or druid high armor class character viable. You can cast that spell before you do your beast form, and that means that you're going to be able to just use that armor a little bit more effectively for longer. It does require hope to maintain, but like I said, you're spending hope instead of armor, and Being able to use your resources more creatively is a very powerful ability. For fireflies, the damage isn't going to scale. 2d8 is fine damage at level 2, at level 3, level 4, level 5, 2d8 damage is not going to be great. It's going to be okay damage at that point, but this is an area of effect spell. Costs 1 hope to target a lot of enemies within close range, and that's really good. The issue is that the damage doesn't scale, and you can't spend multiple hope to replace your armor slots. So that's like, it's an honorable mention, one that I probably would get, and really makes Sage a optimal domain so far. Bold Presence. When you make a presence roll against a hostile target, you can also add your strength trait to the roll. The only limiter here is the hostile target issue. It's nice that you can use your strength in social situations here, but if you only do it against people who don't like you already, not that great. Once you become friends, if this works, then all of a sudden your bold presence isn't as useful. If it was just essentially using your strength in place of your presence, that might be a better one, because it also is going to reduce your single attribute dependency, but it also doesn't seem that traits are going to become that high of a number in this game. So if you just have your presence plus your strength, that's good. It's just that the scenarios are too limited. Number 1, a soldier's bond. Once per long rest, if you compliment someone or ask them about something they are good at, you may both take 3 hope. I know I've said that hope isn't that valuable. 1 hope, just spend it all the time. You're going to get it back next round, basically. 2 hope, maybe a little bit of a cost, but this is not 3 hope, this is 6 hope. 3 for you, 3 for a friend. All you need to do is say, great job, buddy. Lovely roleplay potential. And it just makes you better at everything. You could spend a hope, bam, give your friend advantage, as you say, good job, buddy. It's not even an action. You each get 3 hope. Incredible support ability that I'm kind of surprised to see in the Blade domain, but they argue it pretty well. Just it's a soldier's bond. It's just you and your companions bolstering each other, and despite being kind of plain in its facility, because many of the higher level domain cards are going to have very steep costs, this helps you afford those in a pinch. Maybe you've been floating at that 1 or 2 hope, and then this can push you to that 5 hope that some of the very high level domain cards are going to need. And that's it. That's number 1 for level 2. I hope you've enjoyed my review. If you would like me to focus on any of the other factors of Daggerheart, other TTRPGs, any questions for my campaigns, my stories, or GM advice, I would be happy to share any of those with you. Otherwise, I'm going to continue with these domain reviews. Happy gaming.